Have you ever had one of those moments on a trip where everything just goes completely sideways? I want to tell you about the time I got spectacularly epically lost in Tokyo. It all started innocently enough. I was on my first solo trip to Japan, and the energy of Tokyo was absolutely electric. I still vividly remember the feeling of walking through Shinjuku surrounded by towering neon signs, sheer number of people, the sounds, the smells. It was a total sensory overload in the best possible way. I was buzzing with excitement and a healthy dose of I can do anything solo traveler confidence. My plan for the day was loose. Just wander and see where the city took me. For hours, it was perfect. I was snapping photos of everything, from tiny ramen shops tucked away in side streets to the incredible fashion of people passing by. I was so caught up in the visual phase that I didn't pay any attention to where I was going. I just followed any interesting sound or turned down any alley that looked intriguing. I was following a group of locals in beautiful traditional kimonos, trying to get a respectful photo, when I turned a corner and then another. I was completely mesmerized. When I finally looked up from my camera, they were gone. And then, that's when it hit me. I looked around, and nothing, absolutely nothing, looked familiar. The towering skyscrapers of Shinjuku had been replaced by a maze of quiet, narrow residential streets with low-rise buildings and polished plants outside every door. The neon glow was gone, replaced by the soft light of paper lanterns. The first feeling wasn't fear, it was actually a sense of wonder. Wow, this is the real Tokyo, I thought. I felt like I'd stumbled upon a secret, a part of a city not meant for tourists. I wasn't worried. I had my phone. I had Google Maps, what could go wrong, so I pulled out my phone to find my way back to the nearest train station. I typed in my destination. The map started to load, and then, screen went black, dead, completely out of battery. Okay, a little hiccup, no big deal. I still had my portable charger. I reached into my backpack, my fingers searching for the familiar blocky shape. My heart sighed. I let it charging back at the hotel. To make matters worse, I glanced at the sky. The beautiful afternoon light was fading fast, and the sky was turning a deep shade of purple. The quaint, charming streets suddenly felt a little more ominous. The temperature dropped, and the alleys seemed to get darker and narrower. That's when the panic started to creep in. A cold, pretty feeling that started in my stomach and spread to my whole body. I was alone. No residential part of a massive city where I didn't speak the language, with no map and no phone. Every street looked identical. I tried to retrace my steps, but every turn just seemed to lead me deeper into the labyrinth. I felt so incredibly small and invisible. People would walk past, but I was too intimidated and embarrassed to try and ask for help. My Japanese was limited to konnichiwa and arigato, which wasn't going to get me very far. I was starting to feel genuinely hopeless, imagining myself wandering these streets all night. Just when I was starting to feel a real sense of despair, I saw a warm light spilling out from a small shopfront. It was a tiny family-run convenience store, the kind you see in an anime. I hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and pushed the door open. An elderly man with a kind, wrinkled face looked up from behind the counter. I must have looked as lost and pathetic as I felt. I walked up and, using a flurry of hand gestures, pointed at my dead phone, then made a walking motion with my fingers and shrugged with a hopeless expression. I tried my best to say the name of my hotel's district, Shinjuku. He didn't speak a word of English, but he understood immediately. A gentle smile spread across his face. He pulled out a huge worn-out paper map from under the counter and unfolded it. It was covered in Japanese characters, but he patiently traced the line with his finger from our current location of place. I never would have found on my own or the way back to the nearest major subway station. He pointed to the station name, then to me, and gave me a reassuring nod. The relief was so overwhelming I almost cried. I bowed about 100 times, saying arigato gozaimasu over and over. He just smiled and waved me off. Following his directions, I finally made it to the station. The moment I saw the familiar green sign for Junior Line, felt like I had been rescued from a deserted island. The train ride back felt surreal when I finally stepped out into the bright, chaotic and wonderfully familiar streets of Shinjuku. I'd never been so happy to see a crowd of people in my life. In the end, when I got back to my hotel room and plugged in my phone, I just sat on my bed for a long time, letting the feeling of safety wash over me. Looking back on it now, that day I got lost taught me a couple of things. First, always carry a fully charged power bank. But more importantly, it taught me about the kindness of strangers and the beauty of getting off a beaten path. Getting lost forced me to connect with someone in a real, human way, beyond language. It showed me a side of Tokyo I never would have seen otherwise, and honestly, it's now one of my favorite stories to tell. Sometimes, the best travel adventures happen when your plans fall apart. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever got lost on a trip, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more travel stories. See you next time.